Neale, God, I've been thinking a lot about humanity lately. We seem to be facing so many challenges, and it's hard to know what we should be doing to make things better. What do you think about the state of humanity today? God. Well, Neale, it is true that humanity is facing many challenges right now. But I want you to know that I believe in the goodness of humanity, and in our ability to overcome any obstacle. Neale, that's reassuring to hear, God. But what can we do to make a positive impact in the world? God, there are many things that you can do, Neale. First and foremost, it is important to remember that every action you take has an impact, no matter how small it may seem. Whether it's showing kindness to a stranger or taking steps to protect the environment, your actions can make a difference. Neale, I see. But with so many problems in the world, it's hard to know where to focus our efforts. God, that is true, Neale. But I want you to remember that every problem can be addressed in its own way. It is important to approach each challenge with an open mind and a willingness to learn. Neale, that's a good point. But what about the bigger problems, like poverty and war? Those seem almost insurmountable. God, it is true that those problems are complex and deeply ingrained. But I want you to know that change is possible, even in the face of great adversity. It may not happen overnight, but with persistence and determination, progress can be made. Neale, that's encouraging to hear, God. But what about people who seem to be stuck in a cycle of poverty or violence? How can they break free from those circumstances? God, it is true that some people are facing very difficult circumstances. But I want you to remember that every person has the ability to create change in their own lives. It may not be easy, and it may require a lot of hard work, but it is possible. It is important to focus on the things that you can control, and to be proactive in seeking out solutions. Neale, that makes sense. But what about people who are facing discrimination or oppression? How can they create change when they are being held back by others? God, discrimination and oppression are terrible things, Neale. But I want you to remember that every person has inherent value and worth, no matter what others may say or do. It is important to stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult. Change may not happen overnight, but it is important to keep working towards a better future. Neale, I understand. But what about people who feel like they don't have a voice? How can they make themselves heard? God, it is true that some people may feel like they don't have a voice. But I want you to know that every person has a unique perspective and a valuable contribution to make. It is important to speak up and share your thoughts and ideas, even if it feels uncomfortable or scary. Your voice matters, Neale. Neale, that's a good point, God. But what about people who feel like they don't have the skills or resources to make a difference? God, it is true that some people may feel like they don't have the skills or resources to make a difference. But I want you to know that every person has something valuable to offer. Whether it's a kind word, a listening ear, or a simple act of generosity, your actions can have a profound impact on others. Neale, that's a good perspective, God. But what about people who feel like they don't have a purpose in life? God, Neale, every person has a purpose in life. It may not be immediately clear, and it may take some time to discover, but it is there. It is important to take time to reflect on your passions and talents, and to explore different avenues until you find what feels fulfilling to you. Neale, that's reassuring to hear, God. But what about people who feel like they've made mistakes or have a past they're not proud of? How can they move forward and create a better future for themselves? God, Neale, it is important to remember that every person makes mistakes. It is a natural part of the human experience. But it is also important to take responsibility for those mistakes and to learn from them. It is never too late to make positive changes in your life, and to create a better future for yourself and those around you. Neale, that's a good perspective, God. But what about people who feel like they're alone in their struggles? How can they find support and community? God, Neale, it is important to remember that you are never truly alone. There are always people who care about you and want to support you. It is important to reach out and connect with others, whether it's through a support group, a mentor, or a friend. You are never alone, Neale. Neale, thank you for that, God. It's reassuring to know that there is always hope and support available. Is there anything else you would like to share with me about humanity? God, yes, Neale. I want you to remember that humanity is capable of incredible things. We have the ability to create beauty, to show kindness, and to make positive changes in the world. It is important to focus on the good, and to believe in our collective potential. I have faith in humanity, Neale. And I hope you do too. Neale, thank you, God. Your wisdom and guidance are always appreciated.